Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Larry Love SFL Kickoff Show. I'm Mike Daggs.
Wait. What?
Larry Love.
No.
Larry-
That's not
What are you-
good at all.
what?
Get that out of here.
What are you doing?
No. It's the Matt Willson show, Mike. We got to stay consistent. You can't disrespect the great Matt Willson like that with some chain smoking backup. That's not cool.
Welcome to the Matt Wilson SFL Kickoff Show, everybody. I'm Mike Daggs. He's Gerald Smith. Behind the scenes, we've got Cameron Irvine and Ron Haynes on production. Welcome to semifinal week here in season 25 of the Simulation Football League. We are down to the final four.
And it's gotten this way. And look, and all the games last week were really, really unique in how they kind of shaped out and everything else. But look, I'm excited. Down to the Final Four. I don't think I'm going to catch anybody in my picks
Probably
as
not.
it comes. But guess what? Down to the Final Four. And it is, what? 1 through 4. Who
One
made
through
it in
four
the last
again.
four.
Yeah, all the way since season 20. Those top four teams have shown why they were the top four teams. Let's talk about that previous week worth of games. We had Sin City and Vancouver. We thought that one might be a close game. We thought that Sin City on the road might actually somehow give them a benefit. It was not close. Took most of the first quarter to get points on the board. Vancouver would put up a field goal, and Sin City, they just could do nothing on offense. The runs were stuffed. The passes were knocked down or picked. Vancouver, meanwhile, would put up 17 more points in the second quarter. They just ran away with it, 51-7 victory in that
Yeah,
one.
and it's what most of everybody did. But like you did, we actually thought Sin City, they were really good on the road.
Yeah.
Couldn't really win at home, but they could win on the road, and they did it the previous week.
They did.
Thinking they may have been up for the challenge of Vancouver, but it wasn't to be Vancouver too much for them.
Denver and Houston was the close, exciting game that we were expecting. The Denver defense, as you called, came to play. They picked off Lakeman on Houston's first possession. Houston would end up getting the ball back, and they would strike first in that one with a field goal. Denver would answer back on the next drive with a touchdown, and then immediately got the ball back by forcing a fumble from Tino Sosa. They were held to a field goal, but they did take a 10-7 lead. Houston responded. They tied it up before the half. But wait, another pick on Lakeman with less than a minute to go. Denver's offense would get another touchdown drive, which would give them a 17-10 lead at the half. Briefly, Denver would actually take a 20-10 lead, but then DR Sim, kick return touchdown, that just tipped the whole game over on its head, and it would cut into Denver's lead. Houston would get a touchdown late in the third, which would give them back the lead for the first time since that initial field goal, and they would never give that lead back up. They win the game 34-26.
And that's what it was. Every close game has a turning point. DR Sim with that kick return was the turning point, which gave Houston what he needed. Look, and late in that game, Denver had a shot. They just couldn't get it done.
Denver's final game of the franchise. That franchise is folding at the end of the season. And then the two coaches, Michael Goodman and Jimmy Hatsis, are leaving that franchise, starting their own. The Birmingham Hellhounds will be in the league next season. Looking forward to seeing what they can do. Arizona and Mexico City. Listen, this game did not go quite according to plan. That's all I can say. Jordan Sipe got knocked out for the game to start the second quarter. But then Larry Love came to play. I tried to rename the whole show because he did so good. Got me to the semifinals. You put the kibosh on that, but
he was mediocre at best.
He was. He did just basically enough to not lose. The defense came to play. The defense held Arizona to just 10 points, creating 4 turnovers. Larry Love would do just enough to get the offense going, getting him in field goal range. That was it. Got him in field goal range a couple of times, but then Jared Dumas would give the team a spark by a huge punt return touchdown. Arizona scored a touchdown of their own to get them back within a 1-score game, but then Larry Love would execute a 14, this is why I tried renaming the show, a 14-play, 80-yard, 4-minute, 46-second touchdown drive to bring it back to a 2-score game, which would stick the rest of the way. Mexico City wins it 20-10.
See, what you have is a chain-smoking game manager on your bench. He came in, and look, and like I said the previous game before, Jared Dumas, right? You guys were only up 6 points at a time. He ran back that punt, changed the whole game. You guys were in control from there. Not a whole lot of pressure was put on Larry Love at that point, right?
Nope.
You guys are pretty much holding steady at that point, so he just didn't make too many mistakes and just let it happen.
He just had to not lose is all that he had to do, and that's what he did. So
He's more relaxed when he's smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's illegal for him to smoke cigarettes on the field, Mike.
It might be. He marches to the beat of his own drum. Washington and D.C., it was our lowest scoring quarterfinal game. First touchdown didn't even come until a minute to go in the second quarter. giving DC a 7-6 lead. Washington looking to respond. They would throw a pick inside their own 30, setting up a DC field goal. 10-6 at the half. Washington got the ball to start the third quarter, promptly throwing another interception, set up a short touchdown drive for DC. That would actually be the last time DC would score all game, but that's all they needed. 17-9, DC advances.
Yeah, look, and guess what? Again, what strikes Washington in their losses, it's the turnover bug. They turned over the ball a lot in this game, and guess what happened? You lose, right? When they minimize their turnovers, they have a chance of winning, and they have won. But against a team like DC, you cannot go in there and then have a showing like that and expect to win.
All right, let's take one final look at the playoff bracket as we'll see where everything ended up shaking out throughout the way. We've got 2 games left. It's the semifinals. Gerald, we've talked about it so many times in the past. We think that these games are the best of the season, sometimes even better than the championship itself, because everyone is fighting so hard for that one shot to get to the big dance. We've got DC and Mexico City coming up next at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then at 9 p.m. Eastern time, we've got Houston at Vancouver. We're going to break these games down in detail. We're going to talk about everything that we can possibly think of about these couple of games. And first, we're going to take a look at some footage that Ron Haynes pulled up for us to highlight the 2 teams that we've got coming up in the Houston and Vancouver game. Let's roll that tape. Houston and Vancouver. We're going to look at Houston first. Let's talk about that offense. This is going to be a great game. We've got John Lakeman, 19 of 30, a 63% completion percentage last week, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, a long of 40. They're going to need Lakeman to really show up.
Oh, yeah, look, and guess what we're going to do? And he's going to have to limit the turnovers as well, right? He had some turnovers last week, but guess what? You have to limit it, and he's going to have to come through, especially where they had that 8-9 game win streak, that they had going out throughout the season. That's what they need, and they need him playing at that level.
The run game for Houston, definitely a key part of this offense. You've got Bellew Scott last week, 6 rushing attempts, 36 yards, averaged 6 yards per carry, had a 20-yarder. That was Bellew's long on the day, but not to be outdone, we've also got Tino Sosa, 20 rushing attempts, 88 yards, averaged 4 yards per carry, had a touchdown, a 21-yarder for Sosa. Obviously, Sosa also had that forced fumble, but it did not end up costing them the game in the end. No,
look, and this is what you have here. If what Houston has done great over the course of, I guess, just in any recent memory, they take running backs and they produce superstars out of them, right? They've done it many, many times before, and guess what? That coaching staff does what they need to do to get these running backs playing at extremely high level.
Speaking of superstars, you can't talk about superstars without talking about this guy. DR Sim, 7 receptions, 158 yards. He averaged 23 yards per catch, Gerald. That's 2 first downs per catch. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. His longest reception was 40 yards. There's also a special teams play, but we're going to highlight that one a little later. But DR Sim, an absolute menace, a monster on the field. And when you have a guy like DR Sim, but then you also have this guy, Mike St. Green, talk about a receiving tandem. 4 receptions, 50 yards, 13 yards per reception for him.
Yeah, look, and that's not including a little guy like Greg Corky, who's been in the league at a gazillion years as well. But like I said, when everybody's looking at DR Sim because of what he produces, it leaves the door open for Mike St. Green to find those passing lanes for him to exploit and his quarterback to hit him.
Now let's talk about that Houston defense. I know this is a defense near and dear to your heart as your son plays for them, but you've also got Chris Henry. He had 8 tackles, 2 pass deflections in that game. But for the safeties, it's more than just those stats that are registered. It's also the hard hits that don't register as stats, breaking up passes along the way. And how about defensive end Don Rohr? He had a sack and a forced fumble on the day.
Look, and you know what he had? He's had a great season as well coming in, right? Leading the team in sacks on the season as well. So, and he's come right here, and him being able to produce in the playoffs as well as such a young player is just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of production, you can't talk about the Houston defense without talking about this next guy. Jason Peace, the middle linebacker, 16 tackles, 4 for a loss, and a pass deflection.
And he played out of his mind, and he even called some shots. It didn't quite come to fruition last week, right, when he called and said, hey, we'll get some picks, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But look, he came up to play. It just showed when he was in the chat that he was ready to play, and these 16 tackles showed it.
He sure did. So let's also talk about the special teams unit for Houston. You've got the Hall of Famer himself, DR Sim. on special teams. Look at this one, drop 6 yards deep into the end zone. He's going to take it out anyway. Why is he going to take it out? Because look at that stat line. 4 kick returns, 196 yards. He averaged 49 yards per return. A large part of it, though, Gerald, was because of this one. Breaks a couple tackles and then uses that speed and that Hall of Fame prowess to just run down the sideline, get into the end zone. That was the spark that gave Houston this win. In my opinion, that's what turned the game on its
Yeah,
head.
it turned the game around and got the Willow. And I said it in the past, D.R. Simmons' return game is extremely dangerous, and he proved why right there.
Couple of field goals for Sonny J to help get the needed points on the board. 2 of 2 on the day. Had a 40-yarder for his long. Sonny J's been a staple on that special teams unit for Houston for a while now, and clutch moments and getting that field goal there, giving them that 34-point advantage, and securing them the win.
Yeah, and anytime you can get a field goal kicker going there and just putting points on the board, no missed kicks and everything else, it puts you in a better situation to win a game.
Well, they're going up against Vancouver. We'll talk about them in more statistical detail later on about how they're number 1 in darn near everything and top 5 and everything else. But let's get into some of their players. You got Christian Brown, 13 of 18 last week, 72% completion percentage, 158 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, was not sacked. That's the kind of quarterback that you need. And you're not going to talk about Vancouver without talking about Brett Killian. 5 catches, 66 yards, and a pair of touchdowns on the day.
And he's a Hall of Famer for a reason, right? When you got a young quarterback like Christian Brown thrown to him, who was crazy efficient, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
72% completion.
It was great.
3 touchdown passes out of the minimal pass he had. So really showing up to play right here. When you have quality guys like this, Hall of Fame guys at your disposal, you're going to make good plays because they're going to be in the right place where you need them to be.
Pair of fullbacks on this Vancouver offense. We'll start with J.W. Doyle, 15 rushes, 66 yards. He got a touchdown for himself. But you don't really see the fullbacks being the guys that are highlighted. But when they can run over guys like that, why would you not? And he's also paired up with number 34, Jalen Wells, the other fullback on this squad. He had 20 attempts, 108 yards, and a touchdown of his own. You'll see his highlight next. But, Gerald, these fullbacks, they really come to play each and every week.
And they come to play and everything else. And you know what Doyle brings to the team? He's won championships when he was with Florida or Alaska, whatever you want to call him. And guess what? He brings that leadership. He knows how to win. He knows how to produce at those high levels and showing these younger guys how to do it who haven't been there before. And guess what? They're doing it at a high level, and they're looking to try to get themselves back in another championship.
They sure are, yeah. They were in the championship game last season. They did come up short, but right back here in the semifinals looking to do it again.
And they're averaging 4.5 yards a carry combined.
Yeah.
From the fullback position. It's not normal.
The offense is spectacular, but so's this defense. Marquise Reed, 6 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a pass deflection for him on the day. Just doing an absolutely fantastic job from that linebacker spot. You've also got Drew Hamilton, the safety. He had a pick, 4 tackles, a tackle for a loss, and 2 pass deflections on the day.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. And these guys bring it on all levels, right? So, you just talked about just one of the linebackers there and one of the DBs. Guess what? Those guys are playing all over the place. Getting the TFL from a safety position, it shows you can play the line up front. And just like Marquise Reed, former safety too, might I add,
right,
turned linebacker, playing it really well.
Josh Farnsey holding down the fort at middle linebacker, 7 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, and a forced fumble. Gerald, as we go through these stats for Vancouver and how they played against Sin City, you're going to notice a theme. All of these players had multiple tackles for a loss. They all had sacks. They had forced fumbles or picks. Like this whole defense just came to absolutely shred Sin City. They just didn't stand a chance. Emmanuel Blackman, that man lives in my nightmares. 2 tackles and a sack/TFL for Blackman. He had an interception. Actually, I think a couple of them in the championship game last season. Then he got hurt. I was devastated to see that. Of course, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but it may have certainly helped out. And defensive end, Gerald Drew DeCessi's been on the team for a long, long time. A tackle and a sack/TFL for him as well.
Yeah, look, and guess what they did? And all of them produced, and all combined together, right? And we'll touch on this later, for the game breakdown as well, is that they all combined together. They work as one cohesive unit, and it proved right there in these highlights what they can do all together. It's not just one guy getting every tackle or TFL. It's a whole group effort.
In the special teams unit for Vancouver, none other than kicker Chance to Win. He had a 48-yarder on the day as his long, as you'll see him get teed up for it right here. 3 of 3 on the day, adding on 9 more points because, listen, they wouldn't have been feeling as accomplished if they only had 42 points on the day. They wanted 51, so they needed those 3 field goals.
Yeah, why not? They just had to let the team know, hey, we're here to play.
Yeah.
Look, and Sin City was very lucky to score when they did toward the end of the game. It very well could have been a shutout. But right there, them putting up all the points that they did, it's just doing it, and they established dominance, right? And they used every opportunity they could to actually show the league we're in it to win it now.
Absolutely. So, listen, 2 powerhouse teams. Let's break down this game because those 2 teams are about to go head-to-head later on tonight at 9 p.m. 2 of the top teams in the league all season. I know you have had both of these squads as your number 1 team at various points throughout the season. The winners of the West and darn near the winners of the South come together and play tonight. Vancouver, they've looked just relatively unstoppable all season long. Like we've talked about numerous times previously, they're number 1 in numerous categories. Yep. The categories they're not number 1 in, you can bet your whatever, it's a family program, that they are top 5 in most of those categories. But they were stopped. They were stopped a few times this season, 3 to be exact. They lost in Week 15 to the Trident. They lost in Week 13 to DC, and they lost in Week 7 to
the Houston Headhunters.
Houston Headhunters. That was a 17-10 game. It was actually, this doesn't say much. That was Vancouver's worst loss of the season. That's right, 7 points. That was their worst loss of the season. But they did lose to Houston. Both of these teams have come a long way since Week 7. Both have only lost 2 games since then. Both finished 9-3. Both have won a quarterfinal game, and both are chomping at the bit to get to a championship game. For Houston, it would be their first visit back to the Big Dance since their inaugural season, which was season 6, way back in April of 2016, when Joey Ramos-Lynn was 8 years old. All right, they would lose that game to Queen City, 44-34. For Vancouver, they've also been to one championship. It was last season, and they're looking to make it to their second appearance as well. They lost last season to Mexico City, 31-19. So 2 teams both fighting for redemption. How is this one going to play out?
Houston was able to get back into their winning ways after dropping the final 2 of the season by beating Denver, right? And the game ended kind of weird and everything else, but Denver had their shot to be able to get in there, right? They just couldn't do it. Look, and the Houston defense was the Houston offense was not clean, in my opinion, last week. Mm-hmm. Yes, the Lake Man threw for 280-plus yards, 63% completions with 2 touchdowns, and DRSM 150-plus. Right, we highlighted it before. 2 touchdowns, right, and got a third, which on the kickoff return, which ended up changing the whole dynamic of the game with them being down. Look, and along with the running backs having over 100 yards rushing combined, is what they had, and they were 60% on third down converting, right? But they turned the ball over 4 times last week,
the game,
and it just was like it's 3 interceptions and a fumble they lost. You just cannot have that type of repeat performance against a team like Vancouver, who plays clean themselves. Playing clean offensively this week is extremely important if they want to reach another championship, especially against elite teams. And all that is left is the elite of the elite. They're the top four in the league, and that's all that's left. Look, the offense has the tools to be elite. Look, and we've seen it. They minimized all the turnovers what they had during that 8-game win streak that they had, or 9-game win streak, whatever, or whatever it was. They can play clean. They just need to play clean football on offense. You have to do that if you want to win against Vancouver.
For sure, and like we talked about when we saw the defensive player highlights, the offense is great, but the defense is just elite, and that is largely the reason that they are here in the semifinals.
They played outstanding considering the position their offense put them in with turning the ball over 4 times. And you know what they did? And they forced no turnovers.
Right.
They didn't really force any turnovers, but they were still able to get the offense the ball back to keep them in the game and to put points up. They only allowed 48% completion last week and slowed down the season 25 rushing champ and Bailey O'Shaughnessy last week, right? He was the only running back this past season over 1,000 yards, and they slowed him down enough to slow down that Denver offense, right? And they forced Denver to beat them through the air, right? And guess what? They just could not do it. Jason Peace played out of his mind last week. You mentioned before, 16 tackles, 4 TFLs, right? Along with King Henry, who was playing a secondary extremely well as well. So, look, defense, 1 sack, They applied some pressure, but they only got 1 sack, kept pressure, and they didn't allow their opponent to get into a rhythm,
Right.
which is really, really good. They need that type of a performance with forcing a turnover or two to maybe turn the tide
They will
against Vancouver, because if they don't do that, they are in for a very, very huge struggle. And I think the key players for them are the running backs, Sosa and Blue Scott.
Got to get that game going.
You have to establish a run to take some pressure off your quarterback. Why? Because he's been interception prone recently.
Yes.
Right? Especially in all the losses. I think they got lucky last week. Once they got lucky that Denver didn't take advantage of what they're getting. So the Lake Man, look, stop throwing interceptions. Look, and if not for the momentum shift from DR Sim, they could be sitting at home. They could be sitting at home watching this semifinal game. And the defense, keep up the current play, but force a turnover or two to try and take the game into your favor. And the X factor is going to be DR Sim as a return man.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, that's our breakdown on Houston. Let's get into Vancouver. They're good at everything. They destroy everybody they meet. What do you got to say about Vancouver?
I don't have a whole lot to say. They just proved why they were the best team in SFL that I seemingly forgot about. Houston was on a run. Pittsburgh was on a run.
Yep.
You guys were had a good run, stumbled a little bit, and then you guys got back, pushed for air. I just completely forgot about them. You know what I mean? But guess what? Look, they literally just destroyed them. Only allowed 8 rush yards to the Sin City running backs last week. I'm not even counting Scar Patterson because he was running around for his life, and he had 18 yards rushing. Look, only allowed 193 total yards of offense last week, and most of that stuff come in the fourth quarter when they had to put points up.
Right.
Complete domination, sacked the quarterback 3 times, forced 1 turnover. Was that dominant with just 1 turnover? Complete dominance across the board.
Yep.
Look, and played near perfect defensively. On the offense, they were just dominant, right? Rushed for over, nearly 250 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. Lloyd, Doyle, Wells, right? You touched on them all. Wells rushed for over 100 yards. Christian Brown, 72% completion, 3 touchdowns. The offense didn't have any turnovers. I just don't know what to say other than they put on a clinic last week.
They did.
And showed the league that they think that they are the team to beat this season, even though the 2-time champs are still in it. They saying, hey, look, it's ours to be taken. Key players, I don't have anything to key on.
Vancouver.
Nobody has to improve anything.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, Vancouver's just been on an absolute run. But I will say again, they did lose to Houston. They only lost to 3 teams. Houston was one of them. So will that come back into play in this one? That game was in Houston. This one's in Vancouver.
Dynamic because look, we've seen some flaws in Houston lately.
Yes,
especially late in the season.
Yep.
Vancouver, even in a loss, I don't think I've seen flaws in them.
No.
So
all of their losses were 1-score games.
And it
7 points
just gets kind of weird. Like, hey, does Vancouver got to better? Sometimes say, hey, look, we just got outplayed.
Right. Absolutely. So, all right. Well, that's that game's coming up at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. Coming up next at 6:30 p.m. Eastern in just about, 22 minutes or so, we've got our first of the 2 semifinal games, DC and Mexico City. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from those 2 teams last week as well. Starting off with quarterback Sabaz Synergy Gerald, 10 of 18, 56% completion percentage, 95 yards and a touchdown. Not great stats, but they didn't really matter because the team didn't rely on Sabaz Synergy entirely. It was really the run game, but you've got a game manager like Synergy under center. You're going to do good.
Look, and he's kind of been a game manager most of the season, right?
Yeah.
They played a slow, methodical type offense, and he's a general at that offense, right? Sometimes the generals are not actively involved in combat, but guess what he does? He orchestrates it.
Connor Weston, 3 catches, 42 yards. And his long on the day was 22. I mentioned that Synergy only threw for 95 yards. Connor Weston accounting for about half of those. And how about this guy? # throw it to the tight end, James Walters. He only had 1 catch on the day, Gerald, but this was it. He got the first touchdown to give DC their first lead of the game.
And in DC, you wouldn't think you'd be hollering at any other tight end except for Lauren Prococo, but he shows up right here. Walters making a play and getting a touchdown for his team, which in this game right here, they needed all the points they can get.
They sure did. Very low-scoring game. But this is why DC is able to do DC things. It's because of these 2 running backs, Kevin Say and Sam Harrington. Let's look at Kevin Say first. 16 attempts, 90 yards. He averaged 6 yards per carry. He had a 22-yarder on the day. And, just look at him. The speed, breaking tackles, finds his way almost to the end zone, just a little bit shy. But yeah, it doesn't matter because if he's tired, you got Sam Harrison that comes in. He had 22 rushing attempts, 119 yards on the day, averaging 5 yards per rush. And of course, he got this touchdown that you'll see right here. Long on the day for him was 18. How about these running backs?
Yeah, look, and he had 5.5 yards a carry they averaged last week, right?
Yep.
And then combined, you got over 200, well over 200 yards, rushing and everything else. But guess what? You're putting all this stuff together, and how can you stop this? I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like if you got one that's running 90, and between the two, you have 38 rushes. Averaging 5.5 yards a carry with 2 touchdowns. It's really, really tough for any defense to stop.
DC's defense just gave the opponent all kinds of fits last week. Starting with this guy, Chris Britton III, 10 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a pass deflection. It's one thing to just get a bunch of tackles, Gerald, but when you're able to get them in the backfield, it's as good as a sack, and he had 3 of them.
And it's very, very well play recognition. He attacks the line of scrimmage, and it showed right there.
Peanut Say, the safety, 6 tackles, a TFL, interception, and 2 pass deflections as well. Just holding down the fort back there. There was his interception that he had on the day. But you've also got this guy. He's been around for eons, it seems, Gerald. Nick Fargo, the middle linebacker. He had 10 tackles. Again, 3 TFLs, an interception, and a pass deflection. How about Nick Fargo?
Yeah, he's used to playing in the frigid Fargo area,
Yeah.
South Dakota, or whatever Sioux Falls was, or whatever. But look, comes through, makes plays. Been a very, very experienced, and this is what this team has: a ton of experience on the defensive side to be able to make these plays.
All right, Dan Tritz, pay attention. You've got defensive tackle Jose Fuentes. He had a tackle. He had a sack. There he is right there in the middle. That's actually in Dan Tritz's spot. So, like Dan always says, he can't get a sack. Well, just do what Jose does. Just run by the O-line. Just get into the backfield, get that sack.
Don't skip leg day, Dan. That's what that says. You need that speed. Look, right here. And he's another one, right? Sometimes you got to make these moves. And it does matter with your supporting cast around you. And Mexico City does have a really good supporting cast. But guess what? You have to do these things like that to get in there. And it could change the game.
Dan Tritz and his son Skylar Kingsley in the chat. Glad to see it. DC Special Teams Unit, you've got Mason Kirby on kick returns. He had 4 kick returns, 123 yards. He averaged 30 yards per return. He had a 43-yarder. That's the one that you're watching right now, setting up DC in great starting field position. And that just, bodes really well for your offense when your special teams return unit is able to get you in that sort of field position. And Ron Van Cleef, the kicker for DC, he was only called on the field one time to kick a field goal. It was a 25-yarder, and put that one through. And again, when you're not putting up a ton of points, you need all of them that you can get. And Van Cleef getting it done.
And look, and his sole field goal that he had gave them what ended up being an 8-point lead, which even if Washington would have scored, they would have had to get to 2 points to even tie the ball game.
Yeah.
So that field goal was extremely important for making it extra difficult for the opponent to reach you.
All right, Gerald, this is what everybody came to see. It wasn't about Houston. It wasn't about Vancouver. It's not about the DC Dragons. Let's take a look at some highlights from the Mexico City Aztecs. I don't know why Nacho says I'm not a humble guy, but that's what he claims. Anyway, let's get right to it. Jordan Sipe, he's allegedly the quarterback. He completed a couple of passes. He did his thing, but get that man out of there. Get Ron. Get him out of there. We need the Aztecs court. There he is. Larry Love. We got to get the Aztecs quarterback out there. 10 of 19, 53% completion percentage, 117 yards. He threw a pick, but Ron was nice enough to not put that in the graphic. But Larry did just enough to not lose. Before Sipe went down, here was one of his receptions to the number 1 wide receiver of the Aztecs. 3 receptions, 51 yards, 24-yarder was his longest on of the day. Noe Terrazas. Just been an absolute menace in the playoffs for several seasons now. And you've also got is the guy that you always say that we should get involved as much as possible. Tight end Bill Henry. He had 3 catches for 52 yards on the day himself.
Yeah, look, and that's what you need when especially when you have a guy like Larry Love come in there. He probably is just taking drags on a cigarette, wondering who I'm going to throw to this time until someone says, "Larry, it's my turn.
Yeah.
It's my turn." And those guys are out there doing it, but those are very, very skilled players putting themselves in position to succeed.
Here's a guy that we started getting a lot more involved this season, and the team has been a lot better for it. And it also helps a guy like Larry Love to succeed when you can just take the ball and hand it off to a bruiser like this dude. Buford Van Dam, 7 rushing attempts, 31 yards. He averaged 4 yards per carry. He had a 9-yarder, set up a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line. And then Ray Bentley, the Hall of Famer, the legend himself, 17 rushing attempts, 82 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 5 yards on the day. But the pair of them, add in Jacob Morrison, that's a heck of a backfield.
Look, and Ray Bentley is having somewhat of a little bit of a resurgence. Kind of just took the back seat a little bit and everything else. He's looking really good. I don't know what you guys did to him, or you just got a clone or something, but he's looking really good, back to almost like his MVP days of what he was doing. He's playing at a really high level, and you guys need it in the playoffs.
All right, let's highlight the defense. Are we going to highlight Dan Tritz? No, there's nothing to highlight. But let's talk about John Fowler. He's the middle linebacker for the Aztecs. Look at these hops that he's got right here, Gerald. He's just going to leap right up, pick this one off. 8 tackles, 2 TFLs. He also had that interception on the day. And John Osiris, the outside linebacker, number 50, he also had 5 tackles. But he got a sack. That's right. He got a sack. Here it is. He'll just burn around the outside and get right to the QB.
Yeah, look, and guess what? Look, Dan, this is what you have to do. Tell Mike to line you up on the outside. But I don't know if you got to speed. You missed too much leg days. But look, he's just coming around the side and being able to utilize, right? The offensive lineman's being engaged, with the defense line. He's able to come around and just use his quickness to make a sack.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just been an absolute beast for this defense since coming over from the Las Vegas Fury several seasons ago. Love having him on the team. Guess who else came over from the Las Vegas Fury? That's right, Max Jackson. Speaking of Hall of Famers, this guy is just an absolute game wrecker. Makes it almost impossible for you to get a catch when you have a guy like Max Jackson knocking the passes out. And, oh, that's right, getting interceptions. 10 tackles, a interception, and a pass deflection. And, just getting it done in that safety spot. And we've also got Dan Tritz's son, number 99. Skylar Kingsley. Skylar with a C, by the way, not an S. We'll make that correction. But he had some QB pressures. He had a tackle. He had an assist. And that set up this play by Jeffrey Daggs, speaking of sons. 11 tackles, a TFL, a forced fumble, 3 pass breakups. When you have Max Jackson and Jeffrey Daggs back there at safety, and you've got a guy like Kingsley that's rushing passes, makes it a really tough day to have a pass offense.
And you have 2 Hall of Fame safeties on the back end just doing crazy stuff like that, and you get good results.
How about Qualtino Leah? That's right. It's Jeffrey's mother out there playing linebacker, and she's come such a long way, starting out as an undrafted free agent just a few seasons ago, and now is a staple on this defense. 4 tackles and a pick. She's had a few of them on her career now.
And you guys have quite the linebacker collection. All-Star Fowler, then you got Osiris, a veteran, and a young, person in your lead doing those good things as well.
How about Jared Dumas? He's a wide receiver, but he makes even more of an impact as a kick returner and a punt returner. We've seen this in practice all season long. It hasn't happened in a game until now. Takes this one all the way to the house, 84 yards into the end zone. He had 4 punt returns, 95 yards on the day in the punt return department because of that 84-yarder. That is what got the Aztecs going. They only had 2 field goals up until that point, and then finally was able to get into the end zone and just maintained that lead. Thank you, Larry, for not screwing it up. Chaz Blackwater, he was 2 of 2 on the day. Both of these kicks gave me heart attacks, Gerald. They did not look good, but the refs said they were good. So, Chaz, thank you for getting those field goals. We needed those points. It was a wild game, but Larry Love able to get it done for the Aztecs offense and the defense and special teams. Everybody did their part.
Yeah, Dumas did his stuff right to increase it right to an actual 2-score lead for you guys.
Yeah.
But Blackwater being able to put points on the board for you guys so you guys can take a little bit of a deep breath when the offense was struggling to score touchdowns at the time. And guess what? You guys are able to be like, all right, hey, we have a full score lead right here. But look, it's very, very good. Look, and all these breakdowns just show all these playmakers that we're going to see in the upcoming game.
Thank you so much to Ron Haynes for putting that together. 45 players were just highlighted in those 20 minutes worth of videos. Really appreciate that. Really enhances the show. All right, those 2 teams that we just watched, they are about to take the field in just over 10 minutes' time. 2 more of the top teams in the league. Another pair of teams that went 9-3 on the regular season. The winners of the North take on the winners of the South. This is a rivalry that dates all the way back to the Season 5 championship game where DC would take on the then Santa Fe Gorillas. DC would win that one by a single point, crushing the hopes and dreams of a very young Ramos Lynn, I think he was 9.
It may have been somewhere between
Yeah.
preteenish.
He went and played with Legos and everything was good after that, but he was very sad in that moment. But DC won it by a single point at the final buzzer. DC has not been back to the championship game since that time. Santa Fe would, of course, then go on to rebrand as the Mexico City Aztecs. They found their way back to the championship game in Season 9, and they won that one. And then they've been winners of the last 2 championship games straight as well. DC will, of course, be looking to put a stop to that trend. I'm sure many people in the league would be totally fine with not seeing the Aztecs.
There's enough bling on the show.
It's not. No, look at all these empty fingers.
Jesus, enough bling.
There's a whole second hand. We got some work to do, Aztecs. But listen, it's not going to be an easy task for DC to get that done. They may be 9-3, but they've only got one game all season long, including last week, that they won by more than a single score. Meanwhile, Mexico City, top 5 in points scored, and the vast majority of their wins have been by multiple scores. Some of them by 3, 4 scores, even 5.
Right.
2 heavyweights battle it out to find out the first of the 2 teams heading to the Season 25 championship game. Gerald, who's it going to be? Talk about it.
Look, and the Dragons took care of business last week against Washington, right? Look, and they won by 8 points, right? Strong running game behind Harrison and Kevin Say, right? Get over 200 yards. Look, and Harrison's only other 100-yard rushing game this season was against that very same Washington team early on in the season. So look, they seen something on film and they said, look, we're gonna let Harrison do his thing. Look, and the run game was so good that the offense only needed a mild contribution from Mr. Synergy, who only threw for 95 yards and a touchdown. They didn't really need him. Just be the game manager, be that general and everything. The offense didn't set the stat sheet on fire, but they played ball control offense and dictated the pace of the game. Relatively mistake-free football, only had 1 turnover, right, which is what you need to advance in the playoffs, especially when your defense has played as well as it has and gives you the opportunities that their defense did last week.
Right.
So, look, the offense did really well, relatively mistake-free, ball control, took care of business.
They sure did, and the defense also took care of business, Gerald. Why? Because Washington, all game long, was not able to find the
$18 revs, and you have kicker Otis Boudreaux. He will take you to the promised land. We got to the semifinal. He kicked us to the semifinals. Guess what? Washington had none of that. They were not the Revs, nor did they have Otis Boudreaux. And the Dragon defense, guess what? Forced 3 turnovers to kill the drives of Washington. Look, they also played the line of scrimmage really well. 11 TFLs last week they had. Really, really good up front. And they were practically living in the backfield, and they were forcing no 3rd and longs, which allowed them to feast a little bit and only allowed 45% completion against the quarterback last week. Linebackers Nick Fargo, Chris Britton III, each had 10 tackles apiece, playing at all 3 levels.
Crazy.
It's insane. Look, and they will need the same output, in my opinion, against Mexico City, right? This week to dethrone the 2-time defending champs, to just knock them off, because if you don't, you might be watching them again.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the 3rd time they played in one of the most important games in the playoffs, and you guys have split them. This is kind of like a rubber match type deal.
Yeah.
So here we go. Key players. Guess what? Synergy to Weston and Percoco. I feel like the offense has to run through them to be successful, right? Front 7, control the line of scrimmage and dictate the game. Defensively, the game will be won for this team in the trenches. If they control that line of scrimmage, I do think they have a chance of taking you guys down.
Could be. We'll find out in just a little bit. I'm seeing in the chat that we were frozen for a minute. It's probably when you started talking about the Revs. I bet you anything. Our producer just hit pause. I'll wait for him to be done. And all right, they're done.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's all good.
So Mexico City back in the semifinals, 1 game away from. Go ahead.
But it's just like, why must the Aztecs be here again? Like, no one can beat them. The Sim Gods even did us a favor. They tried to kill Jordan Sipe.
Oh, they did.
But they brought in chain-smoking Larry Love, to just, with cigarette in his mouth and everything else, and he saves the day, right? And what does a brother have to do to not have this happen? Please tell me, what does not have to happen? Look, in all seriousness, you guys played well. Played really good given the circumstance. This is why the Aztecs are 2-time defending champions, right? They have the next man up mentality, and the team rallies around one another, and it becomes a full team effort. We get you guys over the hump. Sipe goes out, Love steps in, manages the game, and does it well.
Yep.
Right? He had one mistake.
Look, he threw a pick on his first pass,
Yeah,
but
and-
since that time, didn't have any
and
mistakes.
And guess what? Ray Bentley, right? Was called upon, right, to somewhat stabilize the game. And guess what? He did it along with Buford Van Dam being able to do, and it worked extremely well. Love was able to keep his mistakes to a minimum. Even though I know it's against the league's rule, it's a big mistake for him to just smoking on the field. I've
never seen that in
puffs
writing.
of smoke. It was not cold. It was
writing.
puffs of smoke. It was not cold. It was little cigarette smoke. Look, and help get his team closer to another championship. Turning point for this squad was that Jared Dumas,
for sure,
punt return TV, gave your guys that 2-score lead
Yep.
right there. So, and it helped you guys stabilize that game and say, hey, look, we got this game, and we're going to win it.
The offense did, in my opinion, just enough to get enough points on the board to win some games. Not every game. You're not going to always win with 20 points, especially because 7 of those points came from the special teams unit. But the defense is really what I think won us that game. They really came to play, got those 4 turnovers. They did a great job.
And they stepped up huge, right? Look, and they did it. And you guys didn't need to have all the playmakers on offense to put up the points you guys usually do, right? But guess what? The defense held strong for you guys.
Yeah.
It gave you guys the opportunities to be able to put the ball back in hand, right? And you guys kept the opposing QB to only 50% completion, kept the number 5 rushing offense in check as well, right? And played all 3 phases of the game, had to contribute. Larry Love came in and managed the game pretty well. Ray Bentley doing his thing. Jared Dumas doing it on special teams.
That's right.
And look, and the defense doing that stuff. That's what championship teams do. That's why you guys are vying for a 3rd straight championship.
Yep.
And I do think it's really attainable. The key players, Bentley, keep up that steady rush game like he's had, right? Like I said, it seemed like he's just gotten this 2nd, 3rd wind or whatever you want to call it. Sipe, just stay alive.
That's all I ask.
Because I don't think Larry Love can come in and potentially save the day every time, right?
It's done it 3 games in a row that he's come in, but
I don't know how many times you can depend on that man to do that. He just looks at, if you look at him, nothing about Larry Love says reliability.
no.
And the defense, right? Do what you did last week, and you might find yourselves competing for a 3rd straight championship next week.
We'll find out. That game's going to get started just minutes from now. Colin and Rick Northrup in the booth, ready for that semifinal call. Couldn't think of a better crew to put on a semifinal game than those 2 gentlemen. I'm looking forward to listening to that one. Let's get into our final picks on the season. Gerald, you lost. There's no way for you to rebound.
Yeah.
There's no way for you to come back. There's only 2 games left to pick, because we're not picking the one we're calling, because we'll be calling that 9 p.m. game, Houston-Vancouver. I was 83-49 on the season up till this point. You went 79-53. I went 4-0 last week. I picked all the home teams.
Man, I was trying to win 100 games. I'm far from.
Yeah, you didn't.
Far
Yeah.
from.
No, that's barely even a passing grade, but you
Yeah,
know.
it's
All
not.
right. Well, we're not going to pick Houston, Vancouver, but we will pick DC, Mexico City. Obviously, I'm picking Mexico City. I'm picking Mexico City next week too. I'm just going to throw that out there right now because we're going to make it back. But who do you
all right.
got?
That's pretty bold.
what I'm saying.
Pretty confident.
I got to put a ring on the finger.
Look, DC has played pretty well as of late, right? They came in there and they shut down Washington, who was surging, bro. They were surging really, really good coming in, and they shut them down. Look, and they allowed them to not even score a touchdown at all.
Yep.
Could we see this game from them? I think it's very possible because it can happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. Just seeing you guys, something clicked when y'all lost a couple games in a row, whatever it was. Mike lost his mind. I thought he was going to lose his hair. He was kind of pulling it out. I said, dude, you need to relax and figure out what you got going on because it's ruining your personal life.
Sir Ron Yates yelled at me.
Look,
I got scared, and I'm like, all right,
look,
we'll win.
And your wife, you know, you
Facts.
thought, I said, look, man, if you get ball like me, Kelly might leave you. I don't know. So he got his stuff together, and I feel like you guys have really rebounded and did something interesting with the offense and the defense, and it's clicking on all cylinders. So I think they're going to come in, and do think you guys are going to win. It might not be by big. I do think you guys are going to be in full control the entire game.
All right, well, we'll find out as that game's getting ready to get started. That was it for the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show. It's not the Larry Love Show. I know. You threw the jersey on the floor,
He's
though.
unreliable.
Anyway, but that's our last full show of the season. We'll be back next week, Friday, 8 p.m. We've got the championship game kickoff show that we'll be part of, along with several others. I'm looking forward to doing that show. But thank you to all of you for joining us for the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show all season long. Thanks again to Ron Haynes for doing those videos for us. Special thank you to Cameron Irvine for allowing us to have this platform and producing the show for us every week. Next week at the kickoff show for the championship game, we are going to announce the convention location and the dates. We'll tell you where to go to book your rooms. All that's going to be able to be started in less than a week. Thanks very much for joining us. Semifinal football coming up in just a couple of minutes' time. This has been the Matt Willson SFL Kickoff Show. For Gerald Smith, Cameron Irvine, and Ron Haynes, I'm Mike Daggs. Thanks for joining us. Get ready because the semifinals start now.